All right, everyone ready to go? Everyone feeling excited?
Let's do it.
Right. Okay, hey everyone. Welcome to D&AD's Imagine Advertising panel, where a few of these year's judges will be discussing the makings of a pencil-winning piece of work and the future of advertising. So joining me today is Robin Fitzgerald, CCO at BBDO Atlanta, Dennis Lueck, CCO at Jung, Shula Sinclair, Global Head of Strategy at Spark Foundry, Andrea Siqueira, ACD at BETC Sao Paulo, and Amie Snow, creative and co-founder of Ogilvy Roots and WPP Roots. So in terms of content, we've got a few pieces of work lined up. So I think to start off with, Robin has chosen Direct Line's Film for Identity.
Direct Line, how may I help you?
So a duo of PVC-suited, sunglass-wearing assassins shot up your lobby. There's thousands of bullet holes, blown up elevators, and a helicopter crashed into it.
You've lost a ring? Yes. I'm sure it was very precious.
The claim is on a 1993 yellow SUV with a tyre missing and teeth marks.
First rule of Fight Club is...
Now, I understand you can't talk about your club, but to get cover, you will have to.
Is it a very valuable hammer?
Protecting the Earth from the scum of the universe. And is that office-based or...?
It says here your property is listed in Kansas. Oh, not anymore.
How big is the hole? Face width. What's that, about 10 centimetres?
Hasta la vista, baby.
A cyborg assassin from the future has been programmed to terminate you. You right? It is a good time to discuss life insurance.
Hello, Forrest.
How are you spelling Gen A?
This isn't Houston, it's Amie. But why don't you tell us about your problem anyway?
Did you say a headless horse? Oh, horse's head.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yippee-ki-yay to you too, sir.
Okay, so Robin, why don't you tell us briefly why you chose this piece of work?
Yeah, this was a piece in our jury that kept coming up, and it was a standard buy. I think a standard sponsorship of the movies on Channel 4. But I thought, and a lot of our jurors felt this way too, the approach to really creating content specific to each movie and tying that directly back to the product and these iconic scenes that people connected to was really fresh. It was surprising. And I think it sent a bigger message from this brand too. Like if they can cover a T-Rex taking a hunk out of a Jeep, they can probably cover my Honda sitting in front of my apartment. It made me like this insurance company and actually made me want to call the people just because they just seem like I know they're actors, but hey, I also buy into this thing too, being in advertising. So it just made me want to call the company, made me like them. And it was a smart media buy, it was a smart strategy, but they really used the placement to their advantage in a unique way.
Yeah. So next up, we have Mumbai Police with Punishing Signals.
Welcome to the honking capital of the world. Here, decibel levels go above the danger mark on a regular basis. And motorists, with their indiscriminate honking, are the main culprits. The Mumbai police decided to do something about it. The punishing signal. Decibel meters were installed on different signal posts in the city. If the decibel level went over 85, the signal would reset, thus making the impatient motorists wait longer. Our interactive billboards relayed messages live, sending honkers on a guilt trip while they waited. A video of this was cut and shared by the police department's official Twitter handle. It went viral instantly, generating millions of views within a few hours. Even schools used it to educate our future motorists. News outlets across the country covered it extensively.
City's traffic police have come up with a unique plan.
Punishing signal, जिसकी तारीफ आज पूरे देश में हो रही है.
The foreign press was also quick to pick it up.
Mumbai police have come up with an ingenious way.
15 minutes, ils en ont d'ailleurs fait une vidéo qui est devenue...
Most importantly, Mumbai police is in the process of installing punishing signals across the city. The administration from other parts of India have announced their plans to implement them in their jurisdictions too. Now hopefully, Indian roads will start becoming quieter. Or else, you get the idea? Huh?
I can give you a short glimpse into our jury. When we looked at this piece of work, we forgot to judge because it was so good. The discussion afterwards, it was like, yeah, we need this in Zurich as well, and then yeah, New York too, and then someone else said, yeah, we need that in Tokyo as well. So we turned it from an Indian idea into a global idea directly afterwards. And the reason why we loved it, it changes human behavior, but with such a huge part of fun. And I think that's why we loved it. That's why it touched us as a jury, and we all fell in love with this piece of work.
Yeah, I don't know if it was fun for the drivers, but it certainly got results. I think so. I was presiding over the media jury, and what we loved about it was the fact that, you know, the easy solution would have been to run an outdoor campaign, and instead they got right into the heart of the problem in a very direct way. And it's such a simple idea, actually. You know, the other thing that we liked, aside from the humor, was the fact that they could have done this 20 years ago. There wasn't any newfangled, high-tech piece of innovation that made it possible. It was just creative thinking that was really exciting. And if we had a debate at all, it was around whether this was a media entry or a direct campaign entry, because it couldn't have been more direct. Yeah, great entry. We loved it.
Yeah. For us, it was easy. It was stunt in public environment, so it was a perfect match. And what we also liked about it is it has a zeitgeist element nowadays. I mean, it's the police. It's the police grabbing or tackling a problem with at least a sense of humor. So I think that's also one of the criteria or one of the elements that pushed this idea forward in our jury.
So next up is a choice from Andrea, which was Project Understood for Down Syndrome Society with Google.
Playing your jogging playlist. It will take you 7 minutes to get there by public transportation.
Technologies that are activated by voice commands are becoming a way of life.
What time is supper? Turn on kitchen light.
Out-of-the-box Google Speech Recognizer would not recognize every third word for a person with Down syndrome, and that makes the technology not very usable.
Scheduling and reminders, practicing phrases, speaking to friends.
They rely on us for almost everything. And if a voice-activated assistant was there for him, that would really help him become more independent.
So we're partnering with Google.
The goal is to make speech recognition work better for people who have different types of speech.
By adding new data of a different speaker,
text mom for help,
we're able to make the model recognize this new speech pattern.
What we really need is for people with Down syndrome to record phrases and donate their voice.
Donate your voice. Donate your voice. This would change everything. Strawberry jam is sweet. I owe you a yo-yo today.
Go down the moving walkway.
The boy went down the path.
People with speech differences are helping to teach Google how to better understand them.
How cool is that?
Just knowing that will impact voice technology globally, that's beyond my wildest dreams.
Hey, Google, thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, this work, it seems so native that Google had to do this, that for the beginning, like the jurors, they wouldn't recognize that it was from this Canadian Down Syndrome Society. So when I picked this for the discussion, everyone was, oh, I just let it pass because I thought it was from Google, because its voice technology is going to be big and it's going to be really everything. And how can we put this part of the society aside of this technology? So when we start discussing about it, it's actually not only a creative use of technology, but it's also like an important use of technology. And it was also in AI, because you have to use the voices from the people that are going to benefit from it to really help the machine to be better, to overcome this kind of problem that they don't recognize their voices. So it's really something that moves humanity, moves people forward. And I just get goosebumps only talking about it, because I think it's so beautiful, and it's the creativity really to help humanity to move forward. And it's also very brand grounded for Down Syndrome Society, because there is a curiosity in the case that the young people that with Down syndrome, they are the same from like Down syndrome answers, like some cases from years ago that were awarded here at D&AD as well and in other festivals. So they keep doing this, for this client, for this brand. And so it's very like there is this truth of the brand.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And as you said, creativity to help humanity move forward. I think that's a really powerful phrase. So the next piece of work we're going to look at was chosen by Shula, and it's called Go Back to Africa.
In the 400 years since enslaved Africans were first brought to America, we've been told to go back.
Quote, they should get back on a ship and go back to Africa.
That we don't belong.
Why don't you go back to Africa where you belong? Go back to Africa!
Told by elected officials.
Go back to Africa!
Told more than once every 3 minutes online. But what if we could tell a different story about what it means to go back to Africa? This is Go Back to Africa, a Pan-African tourism campaign for Black and abroad that hijacks real hate as it happens in real time on Twitter, erases the racist context, and displaces it with the positive vision of Africa through hyper-targeted ads for each of Africa's 54 countries. But we had another problem. For Black people to want to go to Africa, we need to be able to see ourselves there, and most of the people who appear in mainstream travel imagery are white. So we developed an algorithm that pulls hundreds of thousands of travel images from Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, uses Google Vision AI to find the ones likely to contain Black travelers, analyzes and tags the content, and pulls them into GoBackToAfrica.com, a first-of-its-kind socially sourced content platform of aspirational Black travel. From Algeria to Zimbabwe. This platform also becomes the foundation for a programmatic influencer marketing campaign. So if one of our millennial targets likes cuisine, adventure, and wildlife, they get a custom ad designed to help them see themselves there. We can't just erase 400 years of hate, but we can take back what it means to go back to Africa.
So I think, first of all, it was huge. Obviously, it's been around for a while now. I think it's over a year old as an entry, but it has renewed relevance, I would say, for obvious reasons. So I chose to bring it up today. And what was interesting about it as an entry is that it was barely discussed on our jury because it just sailed up and up, but I won't say where it netted out, but it just sailed through round after round with zero debate. And I mean, I think we can all appreciate what we like and love about this idea, but obviously inverting the insult in a way that translates to a number of levels. You know, it doesn't only invert what Africa is supposed to represent in that insult, it turns it into the complete opposite and makes it completely aspirational and rich. From a media perspective, if the whole entry had been about we hijacked Twitter and we subverted crap people were saying, it would have been quite similar to many other entries. I think what gave it the extra edge was using AI technology to pull Black travelers across the web and curate them and serve them out again to show this is happening, this is going on, this is a reality that is not being represented. I think was absolutely beautiful because it's typically a technology that's used to optimize and compartmentalize imagery. And here, that technology was used as a myth buster, which I thought was particularly beautiful. I could go on, but there's a bit of why I love it.
You know what's interesting about that as well, though, because I think when it comes to identifying Black people with AI, they have had a lot of backlash. So for them to utilize that and utilize it successfully is great. And
I do, for what it's worth, I think this campaign will stand the test of time. Oh, and the other thing, sorry, just chuck it in there as well. I think it clearly made money, right? It made money for Black and Abroad. They are a business with a purpose, but they are a business. And I think in D&AD, it's much easier to get through to the final stage when you're just there to influence legislation or for a cause. And here, this is also about driving profit and growth. So that was another reason I really liked it.
I think one thing that's great about this as well is everybody assumes that Black people all over the world know that, Africa is this amazing place to go to. So it didn't just it bust the myths and the hate that, some of the racism that they were receiving from the internet, but it was an educational piece for Black people in America, in the UK or whatnot, to see the beauty and affluence of Africa as well. So I feel like that's why this piece is very, very, very great.
So Amie, piece of yours up next is history blocks.
ISIS claims to have destroyed priceless pieces of history. A video posted yesterday shows people taking power tools and sledgehammers to irreplaceable statues.
اللي نشيله راح يكون ويانا دائما الصبح وبالليل.
Challenge was to recreate heritage sites destroyed by wars and conflicts. It's an interdisciplinary project where we integrate math, history, geography, language, and also arts.
Minecraft is a program that I'm so proud.
وهلا الساعة موجودة بس ما بقى مثل قبل.
Minecraft is going to be able to help people figure out a collaborative digital future that they would have never imagined otherwise.
I mean, you know, in light of everything that's happening in this world right now, and, you know, I just love it when creativity goes towards helping the world and like it has a great purpose. I think what's great about this is, you know, when there are wars, people don't realize how much it affects those people. The fact that, you know, you have mosques and these, you know, hugely iconic buildings that is so ingrained within their heritage and their identity, when that gets stripped away from them, it's like sterilization almost. So then for a company or a brand like Minecraft and UNESCO to smartly come together in order to rebuild their heritage and their legacy, in order to kind of like, it's like they're almost becoming the architects of the country again. But learning about how they, you know, even built it in the first place, it was just so beautiful, and it helped, I don't know, just to keep the legacy and to kind of keep that narrative going. It's just kind of like, all right, you tried to kill my people, you tried to break us down, but we built right back up. And although not physically, they were still able to do it with like the educational side of things, by like applying it into the school system, etc. And I think that's what's important, because sometimes it's not about like the physical thing, it's about the knowledge of it. And a lot of cultures and a lot of countries, you know, has lost a big part of their history, not because of like physical attributes, but because of like written stuff, you know, like recordings of those things. And there's no way you can kill this anymore. Do you know what I mean? So this was incredibly moving. And again, like you said, there was hardly any debate about this. As soon as it was played, it was just like, all right, you know, they got it. And I think we need to see more of this work. You really do.
Yeah, I completely agree. So now from history blocks to Burger King, the next work that was picked by Dennis is Burger King Stevenage.
I can quickly tell you about the idea. The idea was Burger King did not sponsor a high-profile soccer team in a game called FIFA 20. So they could have chosen to support Real Madrid or whoever. But they decided to sponsor a British team from the 4th division and the last in that division. So it's Stevenage. That's why the case is called Stevenage. And now comes the genius bit of it. As soon as you're a sponsor for a team, you are with your logo in FIFA 20. So Burger King is now on the jerseys of Stevenage. And now you can choose the players that play for Stevenage. So you choose Messi from Barcelona to play for Stevenage. So Messi is now wearing a Stevenage jersey with a Burger King logo on it. So Messi becomes your testimonial for Burger King without paying for Messi as a testimonial.
I agree. It's genius because
I fell down to my knees and I wanted to tell the team that did it how much I love them for the work they did. It's so clever, it's so cheeky, it's so smart, and it's so easy. Yeah.
And it's the less expensive sponsorship, soccer team sponsorship, because they were the last one in the division. So they were like the less expensive.
It's the last expensive, but you get the most expensive testimonials.
Players.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really genius.
It's definitely worth what the business side of it was when you now share the image of Messi shooting a goal for Stevenage on Twitter, then you get a voucher for Burger King. And people, I looked up at Twitter when it came out, and it was like all over the place. So also from a business aspect, it was just huge.
Yeah, win-win. So the next piece of work is from Robin Fitzgerald, and it is The Long Fight for Pay Equality by the New York Times.
Billie Jean King serving.
Campaign, the truth is worth that the New York Times campaign has been going for about 2 years now, I would say, maybe a little bit longer. This is actually one of my favorite pieces from it. There are a couple of others that have come out this year that have also been very good, but and I also tried to balance. We did a little humor, and then this one was also one that we talked about quite a bit, and it didn't go sailing through as easily as I thought it would. So it did need some talk and some support to get it going. But I think mainly because the campaign had been going for a while, but what I thought was so profound about this one is, this is a conversation that's been going on since the 60s with Billie Jean King starting and the professional tennis players demanding equal pay, and has had even more profound relevance in, last year with Megan Rapinoe and soccer and WNBA joining in the conversation. This spot ran during the US Open, so it had relevance there, but it had relevance beyond that. And I think that's where a lot of our conversation came from. Like, it's not just a tactical spot about tennis and, it ran there, but it was, it's much bigger than that and more profound, and it's tactical and it's cultural timing as well. So that's what was nice, and what was so strong about this one standing out is that, we saw a lot of high production value and craft. And this one is just the words and taking the actual audio from Billie Jean King in the Bobby Riggs tournament. And you can feel that hurt, you can feel that frustration in the grunts and the even the smack of the ball as it gets intensified. So you feel that fight in a more profound way than I think if we were seeing any of the footage. So
the next piece of work was mentioned by Andrea, and it is Air Max Graffiti Store.
Nike Air Max is a pivotal part of the street culture. So to launch the new models in Brazil, we put them on the feet of those who most represent the streets. The graffiti characters of Sao Paulo.
I wouldn't do that.
What?
The governor hates graffiti. He erased hundreds of them.
I know, bro. That's why we hacked the ones that survived. This is the Air Max Graffiti Store. In partnership with Instagraffiti, Brazil's biggest street art collective, we invited artists to update their own existing characters with the new Air Max models. Every week, a new drop in different regions of the city. The only way to get the sneakers on a limited pre-sale was to visit the walls, access Nike.com, and unlock the purchase through geolocation. Everything in seconds with no lines.
That's sick.
Yeah. And to spread the word about the project, we gave life to our most iconic character, showing off his new Air Max around town. Graffiti fans loved it, but sneakerheads, they went crazy.
Ó, Air Max 720. Tem que vir aqui e desbloquear por geolocalização. Que isso, moleque? Desbloqueado. Finalizar compra.
We were planning the next drops, and then this happened.
Wait, the governor got convicted?
Yeah. So backed by the court decision, we brought back 6 iconic characters erased by him, wearing 6 new Air Max models. Sneakers were sold out in minutes, but the mural will live on as cultural heritage to the city. With 10 drops and counting, the project became a profitable platform for new releases. The Air Max Graffiti stores transformed city walls into Nike stores, turning the brand's e-commerce into a cultural experience.
Andrea, what do you think spoke to you more from that? Was it the sneakers or the political movement that came alongside it?
Both, actually. The discussion was that there are so many aspects about this entry, about this project. Obviously, the creative e-commerce, it's if everything that we think about when we create e-commerce for a brand is that it has to be seamless with no friction. And here, actually, we are creating the friction because you have to go there to really buy the shoes. It's not something that it's easy to do. They are creating this difficulty. So you have to go there to really use AR to really buy the shoes. But the other aspect of it, it's the physical and digital aspect of it together really create something huge. Because as the case was explaining, there was something that was happening in Brazil that when the new mayor started his time, his period, what he did, he wanted to clean the city. So he, in order to clean the city, he started erasing every graffiti, and it was like a revenge, and people were really like riots. Come on, how can you do this with all the beautiful graffitis? So when Nike was sponsoring this kind of cultural aspect of it, it gave it strength. So they went back in the decision. So we could like have the graffitis again. So the brand asked like the artists to really redraw the graffiti using the tennis shoes. So now the graffitis are here out on the street. So it's really something that it was, again, it's something that moves forward the humanity and the society because it's now here. Not only they gave the street back, the graffiti, but it gave the voice for the people, you know, for the young people that really it's part of their culture. So yeah. I really think and it was a great discussion in the jury. So if it was like creative use of technology, if it was AR, because it's everything, digital and physical.
Yeah, and now that brand kind of earned their place in that culture in a lot of ways. So the last piece of work that we're going to show is picked by Amie, and it is Silence the Critics.
But I must confess, this place ain't blessed. This place is a mess. Disgusting. But no, you don't deserve no guest. No. In here, I don't want to lay down or rest. Are you crazy? That crack in the wall needs addressing. The state of the floor is just depressing, man. This table's older than the pyramids. Older? At least it's younger than the mirror is. This place is small, and it's barely a house. Never mind the cat, you couldn't even swing a mouse. It's so small. Those curtains are looking tired. Decorations are tired. Look, your style is fired. It's like somebody hit you with a bulldozer. But if your house was a car, it would get pulled over. Excuse me, please. This is very, 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 very unacceptable. Oh my God.
Silence the critics. IKEA, the wonderful everyday.
Fresh and clean.
I absolutely adore this ad. Again, you know, when it comes to Christmas, I'm a bit of a Grinch. So like to see all of these like lovely polar bears and like Santa Claus, and it's just like, oh, okay. I want real Christmas ads to an extent. Not to say that isn't real, but I feel like this was touched on so many amazing cultural insights that, you know, when it comes to Christmas, you are worrying about like, oh my gosh, how does my house look? But then on top of that, what IKEA went further with is, which I don't believe a lot of people globally really understand, is grime music has been critiqued very harshly since the birth of it, since its birth. and you know, to the point where we had channels dedicated to grime music and they got taken down constantly. And then now to see IKEA cleverly use grime music, which is often like negatively critiqued, to like, and comparing it to, you know, people critiquing, you know, the house, especially during Christmas time, was genius. And I think it showed a level of them being brave, because a lot of the time you see brands using music like this, like black music or hip hop even, for like, I would say more so sport or fashion. But for a brand to do with homeware, to use music like this is definitely a bold step. Another thing, especially when it comes to diversity as well, I think we're now seeing a lot more representation of mixed families and black families in the advertising industry. I see it more when I'm in the States. I don't see it a lot more when I'm in the UK, obviously because I'm based in the UK, but I spend a lot of time stateside. But they did this very authentically, I would say. Like, you could see even within the house ornaments, they had ornaments that represented her culture as well as, you know, his culture as well. So it was done very, very, very well, and they paid attention to detail. I think at first people on the jury didn't really get its cultural context. So I did have to kind of quite explain that. And then when they, you know, like heard the extra layer to it, they were just like, oh, right, okay, cool, that's amazing. So I absolutely adored this. As soon as this came out, I sent this to my whole entire agency, was like, we need to do more like this. Like, do you know what I mean? I was like, who did this? And yeah, spreaded loads of like LinkedIn stuff. And I don't even know who these people are, but I adore this. I really do like this piece of work. So yeah, that's why.
Amie, I loved it too. Oh, go ahead.
No, like D&AD is one of the godfathers of grime. Like, he's been out from the start of, like, you know, when I was in school. I'm 30 years old, so like this guy's just been out. And so for the fact that they also sold and released the music as well, so that went on charts, that was just like, that was an extra layer to it. It wasn't just a TV ad. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, Amie. I was just going to say, I tried to cheat and get 3 things on today, but because I was on film, and this was one of those that just kept going and going. Everybody loved it. And we talked a bit about grime music, but we didn't. I love the cultural context you're giving more of that to me right now. So I love that. One of the things I mean, all the whole time I've been in advertising, I've worked in the States. I've done a little bit of work for UK. So I've done a spot before during the holidays, which is like the Super Bowl time. One of the things I loved about it is that it kind of flew in the face of what some of the ads in the past, or what's a typical Christmas ad that is sweet, that is like a, you know, taking a song from the past and redoing it with a modern artist, right? And it just felt like it was flipping that on its head, but going even more insightful into what everybody was feeling then. So yeah, it was a big favorite for our jury too.
Definitely. That's awesome.
I love this ad as well. Of course, in digital, it's not like native digital. So the discussion, it's only an online video, but I just love it.
So in terms of opening this up a little bit, why do you think that brands like IKEA and like Air Max are able to kind of hold that cultural positioning while holding an authentic voice? Andrea, I'd love to know what you think about that.
I really think that when you have, as I said about the project understood about the Down syndrome society, when it's true for the brand and it's really like brand grounded, it really resonates, you know, because the audience now, we know when it's only crap. We know when you're doing this only to be like trendy and really mainly this week we can see a lot of this, like the past 10 days we can see a lot of this. So when you have something that is really true for the brands, that it really has this, it's native for the brand to go for this cause, to go for this cultural aspect. I think it gets huge, you know. I think it resonates more than it's only for trend, for fashion.
I think another interesting thing that kind of emerged from a lot of the work was the idea of comedy. Dennis, how do you think that people can use comedy in a certain way that can still come across as authentic and maybe not patronizing?
I think humor saves lives. that's for sure. And what I think what humor can do, I think there are many things that are just local or national, but good humor is universal. This happened in Mumbai, and we all love it. Everybody loves it from all over the world. And I think that's why humor is such a good antidote for problems. I think we should have a deep inner reflex to tackle each problem with humor. Yeah, there's a problem. Okay, let's start with humor. How can we solve it? And I think that's why we also fall in love with brands that tackle a real deep issue and solve it with a little bit of ha 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 ha. We can do this. Let's solve it together. Ha ha ha. So, and I think that's something that when we look at stuff happening in the world, I think that's something that we all admire when someone finds a solution that leaves us with a smile and not with and I think that level of ideas is something that is now more valuable than ever.
I think like a similar idea comes across with history blocks as well. Is that idea of like taking ideas of like heritage and stuff like that and kind of moving them forward in a way that like it could have been a lot more negative than it was, but it's about like uplifting people. How do you think that brands can harness that and maybe harness that use of positivity instead of negativity in bringing cultures together?
I feel honestly, I think all brands need to have a level of cultural responsibility in a sense. I feel like they should attack all of the briefs of how can I actually make a real change, you know? And I think if we start with that mentality, then that would kind of like, we would get more of that work, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of the time people just do safe options. It's like, well, why? This has the ability to be something even greater. You have the platform to actually create real positive change in this world. So why not do something a bit more daring, a bit more bold, or back the tensions like those in Sao Paulo, or, you know, like what is going on in society. I think brands need to be a little bit more tuned into what's happening within the local society and worldwide as well, impacts within this world. Like everybody will constantly talk about what, you know, Nike Air did or what Minecraft did, but, you know, simple other things that don't really have attention or something positive strapped behind it, they get lost a little bit. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope it did.
But I wonder if I was drawn to brands that were a bit more humble about understanding the role they played in consumers' lives. So, you know, one entry was an air freshener that was also number 3 or 4 on my list, that recognized it's quite boring as a category and people don't actually care, and turn that into a virtue by piggybacking on the bubble wrap you get in Amazon deliveries.
Sent by Glade, yeah.
Yeah, sent by Glade. That to me is a sign of humility and understanding your place as a brand in consumers' lives. We're not all Nike. We're not all front and center and sponsoring the World Cup or whatever it is. Some of us are coming in through the back door and making the bathroom smell nice. You know, it's and brands that understand that are the ones that can really progress, in my opinion.
Shula, I love you're talking about the Glade case. I love it. I emailed my team, come on, we have to do this, because it's like a small idea, but so clever and so, again, grounded to the brand that is advertising it, because all they need is to really have this taste of the smell of it. It's brilliant, I think.
But just talking about that humility, I think also the brands that realize that they're not going to change the world necessarily. There are brands that can, that are in a position because of the roles they play in consumers' lives, but then there are brands that are not. And there was a brand of fruit, tinned fruit in Thailand, that was neglected in sales. Forgive me if, and it just placed loads of lonely ads in social media and turned it into a very engaging story, and put the fact that it was completely unloved and unpopular and turned it into a virtue. And it's out of the humility of understanding that it wasn't the center of people's lives that came the creativity and the originality.
Well, I think it's really interesting to kind of talk about humility and stuff like that. And obviously not every brand is like trying to make a drastic change. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the brands that we've discussed so far that are trying to make a change really use technology in a really interesting way. And I was wondering what you thought that signified for this year and kind of how that might evolve moving forward.
I think it will change creative departments personally. I feel like, we may not even just be copywriters and art directors. I think even now you see that we're not just traditional teams anymore, because I'm an art director and a copywriter. So I think now we're probably going to have teams of scientists, and we need to have more of those people in like our agencies, tech developers, AI specialists. And I know some companies are developing those departments a little bit more, but I think with the traditional companies, it's going to force them to really look at, inward and be like, oh wait, hold on, like this is where we're going now. We're introducing more AI, we're introducing more tech, we're introducing games more. So who can we hire? So I feel like it's not just going to change the work, but in order to change work, you're going to have to change the people like creating that work. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. I think too, the expectation, like even 5 years ago, I felt like we were struggling in the creative department that like, no, the technology, the platform is not the idea, and everybody was frustrated with that. It's like, you need the idea, and then you need to find, the right technology to spread it the way you want it to, and to make it even better than what we were exposed to before. So I am actually encouraged that the work we're seeing now is idea-led, like the work that is moving forward and being recognized isn't just, oh, it's the first AR thing, or it's this, it's really pushing along that the idea, and that the combination of that, the partnership, is just as important. And then as that gets recognized, I think you're right, Amie, like we're going to just see that trickling down as to how teams are developed more and more, and just unconventional teams, and where we're getting our information is just going to keep changing. It's good.
I totally agree. I think that we have to have like different backgrounds, different people to really join the team, to have a different vision, with different points of view. But also what I think about, even because I was in this digital jury, it's not about the technology, like the first AR, as you were saying, Robin. It could be like a creative use of SMS. We had a case that was a creative use of SMS, geolocation, something that we know for a long time. AR, it's not new, but then you can use AR in a different way, or to use it in the journey of a creative e-commerce, like the Nike case. So it's really an aspect of having this pure creativity to either make us laugh or make us proud, or even to only inform, So I think brands, I agree with Amie, I think brands, they have to have the responsibility and to know their place in the world. Okay, I'm not going to change everything, but I have the responsibility with the local society that I'm in, So it's interesting times ahead, I think.
Yeah. I think a really interesting point off the back of that is a lot of brands over the past week, it's been kind of up in the air about whether or not brands should speak out about, say, Black Lives Matter and stuff like that, if they don't have a history of supporting the Black community. And the same applies with Pride Month this month and stuff like that. I was wondering kind of what the risks are on having purpose-led content if there hasn't been that like clarity about where they stand in a community, and also how brands can kind of think to hone in that voice and make a positive impact.
for what it's worth, I think there's an element of commitment. And I imagine, I absolutely agree with Andrea's point that the relationship between consumers and brands has changed, and consumers expect brands to do more than sell stuff to them. What it means then is that we have a huge wave of purpose-led endeavors and campaigns, etc. And I imagine that all of us as jurors saw a wealth of those purpose-led entries. But then the first thing we do is dig. We do what consumers will do, which is dig and understand if this is substantial and if there is commitment to that purpose. And that's what brands, I guess, need to ask themselves. Will whatever response they create stand to consumers digging and understanding whether there is substance to what they're doing?
It's crazy. I think from a brand perspective, I think all communities want to see is a level of ownership. I think, if you have to change, if you are going to change or you want to speak out, you need to also say, hands up, I'm not perfect. This is what we have done and what we haven't done, and this is how we are going to move forward. And on top of how we're going to move forward, this is what we've put in place to move forward. And then on top of that, like literally showcase it all. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all good and well, people signing petitions, putting up the black squares, but where are the tangible actions after that? I'd have seen, like even Ben & Jerry's, they did great tangible actions. You had Glossier invest in money. You had, there were so many great brand kind of examples of how they've backed this particular movement. But I see brands as people, essentially, and I think this day and age, if your brand is a person, you represent a person that I don't like, your morals, your standards, etc., I'm not going to buy from you. I think that's where we're going. Whereas before, people probably were like, oh my gosh, it's the only brand that does this. Now we have a plethora of brands that do the same thing. But if you like me more because of your standards and your morals in society and who you represent, then I'm going to buy from you. And you even see now brands are losing influencer collaborations, and even, I think like the police, for instance, although they're not, a brand per se, but like they lost a brand who sold them the motorcycles or something. They stopped the collaboration with them and stopped selling them motorcycles because they were using them to, like forcibly stop like black protesters, etc., etc. So stuff like that, brands need to they need to really lead with actionable changes after they've made the outward commitment, because people can see past the PR stunts now easily.
Yeah, and that transparency is really important as well along the way.
Definitely. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye guys, be safe.
Bye bye. Be safe.